Um, Dylan Tate coming back from injury, who, by the way, is throwing 100 at Driveline apparently. And
Mm-hmm.
then, other guys in the mix, Kimbrel, DL Hall potentially could get some ninth inning work. So there are guys who can step up. But yeah, absolutely, you lose a guy like Felix, that's going to hurt.
I realized I never hit the go live button when we started.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Should we
So
take it from the top?
we're going to get this thing re-going here, guys. I'm going to end this stream and then we're going to go live. Actually, you know what? We're already live. We're just going to go from here. We were just talking about Felix Bautista, first team all MLB closer. You know what? I really thought that this was the first show where there was no hiccup, no misstep, and we go 12 minutes just talking to ourselves.
Hey, we were cruising, man. That's all right.
Just talking to ourselves. We are live here on the Bat Around. Sincerest apologies if you tried to tune in and we weren't there. That was my mistake. I did everything early, on time, to be ready to go, and then forgot to hit go live. So that's on me. And we're not running the countdown right now. So just to recap, or to kind of go back to where we started, want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Superbook. If you go right now, the Dodgers are the overwhelming World Series favorites at plus 350. Orioles still sit at 1,400, plus 1,400 odds right now. So if you think you can shock the world this year with the Orioles, it's a perfect time to go get in a futures bet at Superbook. When you sign up at Superbook, use the code PressBox23, and you'll receive a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. So head over to Superbook right now to sign up today. Just a little recap for the first 12 minutes that went completely unaired. Ryan tested positive for COVID and is powering through this show at 102 fever. But he doesn't look it. He looks like he's kicking COVID's ass and not the other way around. So kudos to Ryan for showing up today.
I got my water. I got my tissues. I'm good to go. I got my mic off the stand so that I can move it if I have to cough. So yeah,
for sure. Luckily, my dog, who was, what are you doing? He's still being a pain in the butt right now. He was playing with a squeak toy, and I had to hide them in my desk drawer. But luckily, nobody heard that because this jackass forgot to hit go live. We're talking about how the Orioles are well represented in the all MLB slate this year. Adley Rutschman, first team, all MLB at catcher, taking his rightful spot as the number one catcher in baseball. Offensively, he's been as advertised. He's got a 277, 374, 435 slash line with an 809 OPS and a 128 OPS plus, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, 92 walks in the 2023 season. As Ryan pointed out, Sarah Langs tweeted out that Adley is the first catcher in MLB history to post at least a 125 OPS plus in each of his first two seasons, with a minimum of 400 plate appearances in each season. So that's something that is 100% phenomenal from Adley. Defensively, he was a Gold Glove finalist, 994 fielding percentage. He had no pass balls in all of 2023. I don't know a starting catcher that can say that aside from Adley Rutschman. However, he did catch just 16 of 73 would-be base stealers. That's 22%, down from the 31% that he caught as a rookie. And we were discussing, there are a lot of guys on this team that have trouble holding runners. But then you look at James McCann, who threw out 15 of 44. He led Major League Baseball, throwing out 34% of would-be base stealers. And then Ryan put out a metric. There's a new StatCast metric that was introduced last April that has Adley's caught stealing above average squarely in the middle of the pack at 0. McCann ahead of him at 2. And what we were just talking about is that we expect Adley to completely bounce back. We looked at 2022. His weakness in 2022 was hitting from the right side of the plate. He came back in 2023 and he was as deadly from the left side as he was from the right side, vice versa. So he really improved upon that number. So his one weakness in 2023 was throwing out base stealers. Has an excellent pop time. The base stealer number was right at league average, but as far as we're concerned, it was below where we expect him to be. We expect him fully to bounce back and really improve upon that number and get back up in that 30% range in 2024. And then we're also talking Felix Bautista, first team All-MLB closer, 8-2, 33 saves, 148 ERA in 56 games, covering 61 innings pitched, tallying 110 Ks, which is 16.2 per 9. Had Tommy John season, the Orioles are going to not have him for the 2024 season. They did sign Craig Kimbrell, but Ryan, as we were just saying when we realized that we weren't live, they're going to miss Felix Bautista a great deal in 2024.
They are, yeah, and they've got guys who can step up into the role with Ynier Cano, Dylan Tate, who's touching 100 at drive line right now. Suddenly, I thought he was like a 97 guy. Apparently, he's touching 100, which is awesome. DL Hall could fit the role a little bit. Craig Kimbrell will be some help, and Danny Coulomb has been solid out of the bullpen. So there are guys who can help fill the void. But anytime you lose a guy like Bautista, who is arguably the best in the game, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, and with Tate, it's great to see him touching 99.8 miles per hour. We have to keep in mind that was with a plyo ball, not a baseball.
Fair.
So he's probably right around that 97, 98 mile an hour range, which is still really good. And when you consider the fact that in 2022, he had a 3.05 ERA and a sub-1 whip, you're going to take that. You need that guy in your bullpen. And look, the Orioles have a number of guys coming back. You could see Tyler Wells or DL Hall in that bullpen. Their bullpen's going to be good this year. Is it going to be as good without Felix Bautista? Absolutely not. You can't replace that guy, even if it's with an all-time great like Craig Kimbrell, because we know he's on the back nine of his career right now. But the fact remains, this team is going to be very, very good in 2024. Just how much better could they be if they have Felix Bautista? Probably you're talking about a closer who is what, a 3-4 WAR guy as a closer. You're just not going to find that often. I mean, he was the AL Mariano Rivera was it the Mariano Rivera Roll Age Relief Pitcher of the Year?
Something like that. Yeah, there might be a few more advertisements in there, but
yeah,
I think you about covered it.
The Target Kool-Aid Roll Aids Relief Pitcher of the Year.
Yeah.
Gonna miss him, but I still think the Orioles are gonna have a nice season regardless. And then Kyle Bradish, second team all MLB at starting pitcher, 12-7, 2.83 ERA in 30 games started. He became the first Orioles starting pitcher since Mike Mussina way back in 1992 to post a sub-3 ERA in a season with 30 or more starts. Finished fourth in AL Cy Young voting. Ryan, how big is this 1-2 punch between he and Grayson Rodriguez? Are they poised to become one of the top 1-2 punches in the American League as far as the starting rotation is concerned in 2024?
I think the answer to that is yes. I also think it's important to temper expectations a little bit. We saw Bradish pitch incredibly well last season. We saw Grayson really turn it on at the end of the year. A lot of times those kind of seasons for younger pitchers don't necessarily carry over year to year. There's going to be a little bit of inconsistency. And it's very possible that one of those two guys is going to pitch to a 3.80 or a 4 ERA this year, when we're, in our minds, we're expecting a 3.30. And realistically, it's hard to tell. But I do think they both have what it takes. I do think that my confidence level in them is higher than, just about any other 1-2 punch in the league. And the fact that they're both still so young, I think bodes well for the Orioles. I do expect a couple bumps in the road, but they both look like they're the real deal. They really do.
Yeah, we looked at what Kyle Bradish did in his rookie year. He posted, a 7.5 ERA, 7.7 ERA in his first, 10 starts. Then he went on the injury list. He came back, and in his final 13 starts, my dog managed to find another squeak toy.
Hey, he had to do it again once we actually went live.
Yeah, you guys couldn't miss out on what we got to see or got to hear. This poor dog, he feels like he did something bad. It's just bad timing.
Yeah.
So Bradish, 7.5 ERA in his first 10 starts. He goes on the injury list. He comes back, and then over his final 13 starts, it's a 3.28 ERA. Grayson Rodriguez, nearly an identical ERA in his first 10 starts, 7.5. He goes down to the minors. He comes back, 13 starts to end the year, even better, 2.58 ERA with a 1.09 WHIP in his last 13 starts. And then he goes out. Bradish pretty good in the postseason. Grayson got absolutely lit up in Game 2. That guy's going to come in with a bad taste in his mouth. I think that this Orioles 1-2 punch is going to be maybe the best in the American League. They are going to absolutely dominate, I think, this year. Like you said, there might be some bumps in the road, but every starting pitcher has a bump in the road. You don't see a guy make 33 quality starts in the season. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So I have full confidence that these guys are going to anchor a really solid rotation for the Orioles. Want to put up a chat here from Car Edits. Said big fan. That's just cool. I'm glad that you're watching Car Edits. I don't know what your real name is, but appreciate you tuning in and letting us know you're a big fan. We're a big fan of you for tuning in. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you
for that. Want to remind you today's show is brought to you by Royal Farms. No New Year's Eve celebration is complete without Royal Farms world famous chicken. Get an 8-piece mix for just $12 or a 10-piece mix for just $15 at your neighborhood Royal Farms. We are going to move on to another omission from last week's show, and that was the new rule changes, Ryan. And I'm sure you have an opinion on these because I have an opinion on them. The first rule change: the runner's lane to first base will be wider, including more dirt between the infield grass and the foul line. This now gives a runner's lane in fair territory as well, making the determination, according to MLB.com, as simple as dirt good, grass bad. For the 2024 season and beyond. Pitch clock's going to be reduced from 20 to 18 seconds with a runner on base. It's going to be reduced from 5 mound visits to 4 per game now for a team. Also, if a new pitcher's coming in for the bullpen and they step on the warning track with less than 2 minutes remaining on the inning break clock will reset to 2 minutes rather than the previous time of 2:15. And if a pitcher throws a warm-up pitch from a game mound, he must now face at least one batter. I thought that was always a rule because that was a rule in leagues I've played in, but apparently it wasn't. Now it is a new rule. These last 4 rules brought about because the pace of game went up 7 minutes in September as opposed to where it was at the beginning of the season in April. Ryan, let's start with the new runner's lane, the widening of the runner's lane. Your thoughts on that?
God bless America, baby. This is long overdue. It's been incredibly frustrating watching runners get called out because they were slightly inside the baseline on the grass when the base that they're running to is in fair territory, especially for right-handed hitters. If you're looking down the first base line from behind the plate, the right-handed batter's box is in fair territory. The first base that you're running to is in fair territory, but the lane in which you're supposed to run is in foul territory. None of that makes sense. This is a long overdue rule change, and I'm so glad we finally have some clarification, and hopefully we can avoid these terrible, terrible game-changing calls that we've seen not only in Major League Baseball, but there was a Maryland game in the College World Series that was significantly impacted by a batter being called out. And not only did they call the batter out, they called the runner coming from third to score out. It was something absurd like that. But anyway, yeah, this one's long overdue, and I'm so glad we finally have this.
I'm glad too, because like you said, it's you're running to a base in fair territory and you have to run in foul territory, and you're kind of expecting, like you said, a right-handed batter to angle their run you have to kind of circle around before you can get down there. It's got to take time off getting down to the base. Now you can just go straight to it. Yeah. I'm also wondering how this is going to impact bunting, because there's going to be less grass and more dirt. So if you lay it down and the ball's bouncing in the grass and it starts to roll, especially for a left-handed batter, and starts to roll, and sometimes it will hit that lip and then roll into foul territory. If it hits that lip and then still has another foot and a half till it gets to the foul line, you could see a lot more balls that could stay fair that would have gone foul in previous seasons. You don't see too many issues with the bunts down the first baseline because a pitcher, if they really want the out, they can go grab the ball, or the first baseman and just tag the guy. But if you have a speedier guy like a Cedric Mullins laying down that bunt, it's not going to be so easy. So I'm wondering how that's going to be impacted too. And I'm sure we'll see it at least a handful of times where a guy reaches base on a bunt that would have been foul in years past because it doesn't roll as far. So we'll see.
Jorge Mateo, this is your time to shine.
He's
just
got
learn
to
how to put it down.
Bunt. I've never seen a guy with that kind of speed that bunts as poorly as Jorge Mateo, but he might not even be here. He might not even be here.
That's true.
So, as far as the pitch clock being reduced from 20 to 18 seconds or runner on base, much ado about nothing, right? I don't really care about this, right?
Yeah. No real thoughts on that one. 4 mound visits
per game now instead of 5. I'm not sure I like that. I don't think it's going to have a big impact. but I don't think that you should be. I've never wanted them to limit mound visits. If you go and visit a pitcher, the rule's always been one mound visit, and then if you go out for another mound visit in the same inning, the guy's got to be taken out. I think that should just have always been the rule. And you can thank Joe Girardi and Alex Cora and all those crappy 4.5 hour, 9 inning Yankees Red Sox games. Joe Girardi was the king of using 17 pitchers in 1 inning. And that's basically, he's the reason that they put this rule in place, and you won't convince me otherwise. I think it limits a team strategy a little bit, but I'm not so upset about it that I'm going to be, yelling at a cloud, but I thought that it could have stayed the way it was before they even limited it to 5.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I do. This might be a dumb question, but it only counts as a mound visit if the pitching coach comes out, right? Right, but the catcher can go out and still talk to the pitcher. That doesn't count as
that's
an
a
official
great
mound
question.
visit.
I don't think that's an official mound visit. No, yeah.
I don't think it is either. I'd have to double check on that, but I agree with you that I think things were fine the way they were before. But this is another one that it's whatever.
As far as the new pitcher coming in from the bullpen, stepping on the warning track with less than 2 minutes, they reset the clock to 2 minutes. I never knew that they reset it at all, let alone to 2:15. So that's neither here nor there for me. Apparently, it's because each broadcast has 2-minute commercial allotments. So it has something to do with the fact that now they have to scramble. If they step on the warning track at less than 2 minutes, they could be given, an extra 30 seconds, and maybe they got to scramble to put a new ad in. I don't know. Didn't know it was a thing in the past. So, and then again, a pitcher throws a warm-up pitch from the game mound, he must face at least one batter. I don't know if he just has to throw one pitch and then they can take him out, if he has to face the full batter for the extent of the at-bat. But in the leagues I've played in, I remember because one time I was supposed to pitch, and one of our infielders came in and pretended to warm up. And because of that, the umpire said, no, you have to pitch now, and Paul's out of the game. And that kid did not pitch, and I was our best pitcher, and it hurt us because of that. So I always thought this was a rule. I had no idea that it wasn't.
So I was a little fuzzy on this one because when these rule changes were first announced, I was led to believe that if a pitcher was warming up in the bullpen prior to an inning, they must come into the game, which I guess is maybe I misinterpreted it. But so if he comes in from the bullpen and throws a warm up pitch on the field mound, that's when he has to face at least one batter. Because then, how does that work with the 3-batter minimum?
It's not.
Does that negate that?
That you're not going to bring a guy in from a bullpen unless he gets hurt. That's not going to happen. Well, I think what they're talking about is if you have your starting pitcher who's pitched 6 innings and he comes back out for the 7th, and they bring up a pinch hitter, and then you go out to the mound and you pull out the starting pitcher, or if what you're doing is because it's a pace of game thing, a pitcher's thrown 6 innings of 1-run ball or 1-hit ball. And you're going to take him out. Maybe it's his last start of the season, or maybe it's a start in which, it's his first start coming back off the IL, like a John Means situation. So you want to send him back out for the 7th so the crowd can give him that ovation and then take him out. Now that you're not allowed to do that. If they come back out and they stand on that mound, they have to throw a pitch to the first batter. That's what the rule is. Because there's so many times you have a reliever who's warming up who doesn't come into the game. That's pointless. You can't enforce that.
Yeah,
it could be just a guy getting some work in.
Yeah. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, I was a little fuzzy on that one. That kind of rubs me. I don't like that you can't bring a pitcher off to an ovation. If that's my
interpretation of it. It doesn't. That wasn't the example given. They didn't really give an example, but that's the only thing.
Well, that makes sense. That would fit, what the rule is meant to be. And I understand, it takes a lot more time between innings. If you send a guy out, he warms up, and then you bring him off the field. But I don't know. It's just that kind of annoys me.
I mean, I always thought it was a rule to begin with, but apparently it wasn't. So for me, this is something that I just always assumed was in place. So now that it's there, it's like, oh well, nothing changes for me. But when I really think into it, when you have a guy, like if you recall, It would be like when Derek Jeter was out at shortstop, and was it Derek Jeter? No, it was when Mariano Rivera. Was it when he was on the mound, and
Yeah.
Jorge Posada, Andy
When
Pettit, and who was the other guy? Was it Jeter?
I don't think Posada was there, but Jeter and Pettit came out to
Right.
remove Mariano
It
from
was
the game.
when that happened,
Yeah.
but Mariano was retired before Jeter. He retired following 2012, and Jeter retired following 2014. So I know it was Jorge
Yeah.
Posada and Andy Pettit. That may have been the two guys that came out and took him out. And was it Tino Martinez?
I'm pretty sure it was Jeter. I don't think he was
maybe.
playing
I
that
don't
game.
know. Or maybe they took him out for a defensive replacement, which would make a hell of a lot of sense because he was a terrible shortstop. Just throw that little dig in there. But
catching strays on this beautiful Saturday
Can you
morning.
imagine, like, one of the all-time great closers is out there. It's his final game, and you just put him on the mound so he can get that ovation, have his buddies come take him out. And the umpire's like, nope, you got to throw a pitch now. Like how lackluster that
dumb.
celebration would be. That would be really stupid.
Right. I will say in the instance of Rivera, I'm pretty sure he faced at least one batter before they did that. So I think it was, he came in, he got an out. Maybe it was 2 outs, I'm not sure. And then they came out and let him have his moment. Because it was a meaningless game for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to remind you today's show brought to you by Help My Gambling Problem. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's 1-800-GAMBLER, or you can visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Shifting gears a little bit here, and it's the same tune that we've been singing all off season. The Orioles have yet to add a starting pitcher, unless you consider Jonathan Heasley. Before we get into anything, Ryan, I wanted to get your take on Jonathan Heasley. Apparently, he's got about a mid to upper 90s fastball that kind of is flat, but he's got a really good curveball. He implemented a sweeper this past season. A scout that talked about him, I think with Rock Kabako, said that he could be an effective middle relief option in Major League Baseball. Your thoughts on Heasley?
His numbers aren't good. And when the Orioles signed him or traded for him, excuse me, I texted you and was like, well, it's something to talk about on the show. Heasley is a guy for me that I'm not convinced will break camp with the team. But with that being said, anytime Elias makes a trade like this, in my head, I'm like, what does he know?
Right.
What does he see? And he gave away, I think, a young, low-level prospect who I had never heard of before.
Espinal. He was a young Dominican summer league pitcher for the team.
Yeah. So when that happens, it's like, all right, what does Mike see in this guy? What does SIG? What does our scouting department? What does player development see in this guy? Why are we trading for him? So maybe there's something the Orioles think they can unlock. His numbers, he's I think 26 years old, and his big league numbers have not been good.
He's got a 5.45 or a 5.54 ERA and 133 in the third big league innings. And his minor league numbers, his AAA numbers weren't great either. But the strikeout numbers were higher in AAA, and the walk numbers were lower.
Yeah, so maybe there's something there. Maybe he's a middle relief option, but until I see the guy throw, I'm not really sure what to think. It's not a move that really does anything for me, but I trust this front office. I think if they see something, maybe they can unlock it, get him to the pitching lab, work on that, get that fastball up a tick or two, utilize the curveball appropriately. You never know.
I'm inclined to think that this guy's going to get an opportunity in spring training to show what he's got. I think he's going to be pitching depth for the team who can maybe make a spot start here or a relief appearance there. I think he's more depth than anything else, and it's because it's just the one trade that they made this offseason so far. It's what we have to talk about, and then when we're in May or June and he's not on the team, we won't even think twice about him. It'll be a blip on the radar that Rock will write about, in next year's offseason blog, right? So
Yeah, it screams Austin Voth to me. And granted, Austin Voth did have a nice stretch as
Hmm.
the Orioles' fifth starter. He posted like a 3.20 ERA after he
Yeah,
came over from the Nationals. So maybe Heasley is on a similar path, but it screams, like you said, depth move to me. And Austin Voth, when we acquired him, I
yeah,
was like, all right,
exactly,
depth move.
exactly. And I think Cole Irvin is going to fill that Austin Voth role from 2023 beautifully this year. I think that's going to be his role, and I think he's going to take it and run with it. But topic for another day. We just mentioned Rock and his blog. Rock Kabako has written in his blog in a state as a guest on High Heat on MLB Network this past week that the Orioles are aiming for a top of the rotation starter, but could settle for a back end rotational piece if they don't get a true number one or number two. How do we feel about that, Ryan? Because I would like to think that the days of Kyle Gibson and Jordan Lyles are over, but maybe they're not over.
You know, if they don't get a true number one or number two, does it matter that much if we think that Grayson and Bradish are that true number one and number two? Like if they are going to be those guys at the top of the rotation, I mean, look, this isn't to undermine the importance of having good starting pitchers, right? Would you rather a pitcher like Grayson Rodriguez be your three than your two? Maybe. And if that means going out and getting a, bona fide established number one or two, then, I think that's what you do. If they end up settling for more of a back end guy, I don't think it would hurt as bad as it has the last couple of years,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Because I think we do have these two guys already, maybe three if John Means is, healthy and pitching well, firing on all cylinders. Maybe we, have enough guys. Maybe we have enough dudes, as you like
yeah.
to put it, in the rotation already. But like I said, that's not to take away the importance of having as many dudes as you
Right,
can
and
in your
and
rotation.
that's the thing here, right? We all believe that Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez are going to be those guys, and if John Means can come back as John Means, that's a really solid number three. And then Dean Kramer, who has what, a 3.5 ERA the last two seasons, he posted 15 wins this year. Then Tyler Wells, who led the American League in WHIP the first half of the season, and then you have DL Hall, you have Cade Povich and Chase McDermott and Seth Johnson waiting in the wings, Cole Irvin. You have options on your team, but I think it's more so because we depended on a lot of young guys last year, and they pitched really well, especially the second half of the season. But Kyle Gibson won 15 games for this team last year, and yeah, his ERA was 4.5 or above. I think it was 4.75 last year, but that was because of a handful of starts. He was nails the rest of the season. Um, you know, I, and you look at Grayson Rodriguez, probably, I mean, unless he's like Clayton Kershaw or, the starting pitching version of Craig Kimbrell, which is Clayton Kershaw, and he's just great in the regular season, never good in the playoffs. Okay, that's a problem that you have to deal with. But I don't believe that Grayson Rodriguez is going to go out there and put up another dud in the postseason like he did last year.
I don't think so either, and that's not a concern for me because you need, even if he ends up posting a career 8
Mhm.
ERA in the playoffs, you you need guys to
Exactly.
get you to the
Exactly.
playoffs, right? And
Right.
you
And,
figure it
and
out when you
look,
get there.
if the Orioles number 4 or number 5 starter is Dean Kramer, um, I think we can all live with that. And I think that you have prospects like
Yeah.
Chase McDermott and Kate Povich who are going to be nasty. And then Seth Johnson, who came over in that Trey Mancini trade, he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Look, he's never pitched above high A, but they think he's going to move quickly through the system. I mean, Rock's talked about him debuting this summer. You have options. They are going to add another starting pitcher to this team. I think we can both agree to that, right? So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of,
Yeah.
does the guy that you add, you want him to be? Do you want him to be in that Grayson Rodriguez or in that John Means ilk, or do you want him to be in that Dean Kramer ilk? You know,
I mean, you want him to be as
right?
good as you can
Exactly.
get, right? So it's, but
Mm-hmm.
that comes at a cost, right? And if we're talking about free agents, the fact of the matter is there aren't really any free agents on the list that would, that you consider top of the rotation guys. Maybe a handful that you could,
Right.
make an argument for. And I think we're going to get into that in a minute here. But, you know, if you want to acquire a number one or number two pitcher in the trade market, you're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
give up some prospects. And so depending on the packages that are requested in return, it could be more beneficial to the long-term, success of the team to maybe target a
Yeah.
number 3 or number 4 pitcher. But if you're looking at it in a vacuum, yeah, you want the
Well,
best guy
and there's
every
a
time.
couple of guys that were out there. We know the trade candidates: Corbin Burns, Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Jesus Luzardo. Who amongst those free agents would have been a fit? Some of the guys I thought may have been a fit. Chris Flexen, he got signed by the White Sox to a 1-year deal. I think he's making like $1.5 million. It's nothing to write home about. Posted back-to-back seasons as a full-time starter, basically a full-time starter. There was like a handful of relief appearances in there, but sub-4 ERA in Seattle in 2021 and 2022. The Mariners traded to the Rockies this past season when he posted a 70-71 ERA in Seattle, then posted a 6.27 ERA in Colorado. He signs with the White Sox. I probably would have wanted him, but I also do believe that if anybody can figure out a pitcher and help him get back to his glory days, it would be this Orioles pitching coaching staff. The one guy who I thought could have been one of the guys who I thought could have been a really nice fit, Lucas Giolito. He signed a 2-year deal with the Red Sox yesterday. 3.79 ERA in 21 games started with the White Sox this past season before he was traded to the Angels. 6.39 ERA with the Angels in 6 games started. They released him, and then the Guardians picked him up, and he had a 7.04 ERA in 6 starts with the Guardians. He is now a Boston Red Sox. So then you're looking at who's left. There's really one guy. All right, let's talk about Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. Neither one of them are going to end up here. CBS Sports projected Jordan Montgomery to get 5 years, $110 million. If he's getting 5 years at $22 million per, I think the Orioles 100% should do that. But I think he's getting 25 plus.
Yeah, I think so too. And then you look at Blake Snell; he's going to get even more, coming off a Cy Young season in which he was, absolutely dominant.
He's one of the, isn't he the first pitcher to win the Cy Young in both leagues? No, that can't be true.
It can't be, but I saw.
Didn't Scherzer do it?
I don't know. Was Scherzer, when was Scherzer in the American League?
Didn't he?
Detroit.
He win the Cy Young with the Tigers? Yeah. I think he's one of a handful.
It's not common. I know that. I don't think either of those two guys are going to end up in Baltimore. Jordan Montgomery is a guy that always seems like he's thrown around in Orioles trade discussions just by fans on social media. I think he's out of our price range at this point. Although, I mean, we can afford who we want, just a matter of opening up the wallets. But yeah, I don't see either of them.
So the main guy for me is Marcus Stroman. And Marcus Stroman is that dude who I wanted the Orioles to go get 2-3 years ago before he signed with the Cubs. Last year, he went 10-9 with a 3.95 ERA. He pitched in 27 games, 25 starts. He made the All-Star team. He was the front runner. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, right.
Same.
See, yours is from being sick. Mine's just clearing my throat. But he made the All-Star game. He was the front runner for the NL Cy Young the first half of the season. 16 starts, 9-4 record, 2.28 ERA. Fell off a cliff in July. He was so bad in July. 1-3 in 6 starts with a 9.11 ERA. He hit the injury list with a hip injury, and then he suffered a rib cartilage fracture in mid-August, just as he was about to pitch again. Came back and pitched 2 games in relief, 2 starts, none of them good. But I think that he's got that swagger. I think he's got that right attitude, that right personality to really mesh in well with this Orioles clubhouse. And CBS Sports projected him to get a 3-year, $70 million deal. If the Orioles aren't all over 3 years, $70 million for a guy like Marcus Stroman, then what are we even doing? What are we even doing?
Yeah. Would that be the first multi-year deal Elias has given out? Has he done it yet? I know somewhat recently he hadn't yet.
Has a 1-year deal with an option. Both had the same thing, and so did Trey Mancini going into 2022. And then if you look at John Means got a 2-year deal after Tommy John surgery, and so did Felix Bautista. But that's kind of because it's like you want those guys rehabbing instead of worrying about,
Right, and those were arbitration deals too.
So for a free agent, yes.
So he has to
unless
a free
you
agent
have an option,
right,
multi-year deal.
Yeah, talking like,
Mm-hmm.
2 or more guaranteed. Yeah, I mean, the Orioles absolutely should be all over Stroman at that price range. It's less than 25 million a year, and he's been fantastic. A few bumps in the road, like you said earlier, you expect that with any pitcher. But yeah, I think he would fit in the rotation very well. It's weird saying that because I don't
Yeah.
like Marcus Stroman, but he's the kind of guy I feel like if he was on the Orioles,
I
he'd be one
love
of my favorite
what
players.
don't you like about Marcus Stroman? I love Marcus Stroman.
I don't know. I don't know. He's always rubbed me the wrong way. He blocked me on Twitter a few years back. I don't remember what that was about, but um, I think like I've gone through phases with Stroman, right, where the whole height doesn't measure heart
Mm-hmm.
thing or whatever it's called. I don't know if he even does that anymore. Um, for some reason, like, because I don't consider myself tall. I'm like 5'9" on a good day. I I don't know. It felt like he was making that his entire personality. Like, oh, I'm short. I've got this chip on my
Mm-hmm.
shoulder because I'm short. It's like, dude, you're a pitcher in Major League Baseball. Like, you don't need. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, if he was on the Orioles, I think he'd
Yeah,
be one of my favorite
and
guys.
that was one of the reasons I didn't like Dustin Pedroia, aside from the fact that like he was a Boston Red Sox. Dustin Pedroia was
Yeah,
always like, oh, he's small, he gives all short guys hope, and it's like, all right, but you know, who cares? Like, who cares?
yeah. That's the other thing with Stroman is he was on the Blue
Yeah.
Jays for a while, and so naturally I didn't like him because of that. So yeah, I don't know, but if we're talking about the free agents that are left available, I think Stroman definitely fits the mold of what the Orioles should be looking for. There's another name, Paul, that I want to bring
Okay.
up because I haven't seen him talked about very much at all. He's going to miss probably all of 2024, but Brandon Woodruff has been one of the best pitchers in baseball for 5 years now,
Is he?
and he had he's a free agent. Yeah, the Brewers released him. He is a free agent. 2.28 ERA last year in 67 innings, 3.05 in 153 innings the year before that, 2.56 ERA in 179 innings the year before that. Is a career 3.10 ERA, a career 3.19 FIP. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He does strike out a lot of guys. I I would love for the Orioles to sign and stash Brandon Woodruff. He's gonna miss. This is gonna be, I think, his age
Mm-hmm.
31 season, which he will miss. But I would love to have him queued up for the
Yeah. So,
2025 rotation. Now, I don't know if that's a discussion that needs to be had today, but he's a name that I am very, very, very much
well,
interested in.
couple of things about that. He's arbitration eligible, so he's technically not a free agent until next year. But like you said, the Brewers released him, um, which means he's basically hit free agency a year early. He's not going to pitch in 2024. Maybe he'd be willing to sign for less money if a team like the Orioles said, "Hey, we'll give you 4 years at 80 million," when he's probably worth 5 or 6 years at 25 to 30 million a year. Um, and maybe he's like, you know what, I'll take that because you're willing to pay me this season, even though I'm not going to be pitching at all. He's not going to make any money this year, essentially. So maybe that would be something. But otherwise, I think he's going to command too much money because unless people are really, or if he's trying to just have this off season and have this season not be on a team and then have a 1 year make good deal like Cody Bellinger just did with the Cubs and really
Yeah.
prove that that shoulder issue isn't going to hinder him moving forward. But I'm just not sure. I don't know. And how many other teams are thinking the same way you are, where it's
See, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know if it's because I haven't been spending as much time on Twitter as I normally do, but I haven't seen his name
mm,
thrown around much. And yeah, he would command a lot of money, which is why I think it would be beneficial to, sign him to a deal now where he's, making a few $1,000,000 and maybe you backload it a little bit and, lock him up through his age 33 or 34 season where you're saying, hey, we'll pay you this year and then you're going to be one of our guys the next two or three. I think Woodruff would be a
yeah.
great fit in
Otherwise,
Baltimore.
man, I don't know. I mean, some of the guys are out there. Michael Lorenzen's out there. Um, Sean Mania,
Yeah, it's all
Hyunjin Ryu, James Paxton, Trevor Bauer. But if you don't want to sign guys who have beat up women, and I don't, he even though he was exonerated, there were 4 or 5 allegations against him. I'm wondering, where there's smoke, there's fire. But there's just not a lot of names. Mike Clevenger is a free agent, apparently. Just not a lot of guys out there that would kind of fit that mold of signing Andrew Heaney. Yuck. Of
yeah, it's a bunch of guys that are like
Yeah,
it wouldn't make me
exactly,
happy.
exactly. So
It just wouldn't.
I think a trade is going to have to be the route unless you're willing to go. Marcus Stroman's the only guy, in my opinion, that would make the most sense. Otherwise, what are we doing? There's either make a trade
Right.
or be good with what you have. But I think we can all agree they need to add somebody. So we can all also
Yeah.
agree that you want to get Pressbox's best of issue. Pressbox's annual best of issue is available now. On the cover, we celebrate Brandon Hyde as our Mo Gavin Sports Person of the Year and the Orioles as our Team of the Year. And inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year in Baltimore sports. Pick up your copy for free today at your neighborhood Royal Farms or read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com. We're going to close things out talking a little bit about the Ravens. It's the slowest week in baseball. The week between Christmas and New Year's, everybody's dormant. We do see a few moves now and then, but really, as far as the Orioles are concerned, we haven't seen anything. So there's not really much to talk about today. And considering that, we got the show going live 12 minutes late because of my jackassery, we will we'll move on to a little bit of a Ravens recap here. Ravens go out to San Francisco last Monday and absolutely curb stomp the San Francisco 49ers. They won 33-19. The game wasn't even that close. Lamar cemented, in my opinion, his MVP campaign for 2023. And now they have a big test against the Dolphins on Sunday. Dolphins are going to be without Jalen Waddle. He's been ruled out with a high ankle sprain. That Tyreek Hill isn't 100%. But if you only have to worry about covering one of those guys instead of two of them, when they're the 2 fastest guys in the league and the 2 highest graded receivers in the AFC this season, Waddle being out is a nice thing for the Ravens. You still got to go with Mostert, who was a Baltimore Raven at one point, now leads the NFL in touchdowns. I'm not a big believer in Tua. I think that his entire game is just throwing the ball up and letting Tyreek and Waddle go get it. Your thoughts on this game coming up, Ryan?
I feel like I haven't watched Tua enough to really have a strong opinion one way or the other on his abilities. Obviously, having Waddle and Tyreek is a massive help to a quarterback. But my thoughts on this game, I mean, coming off of the biggest win of the year, crushing the 49ers in their home stadium, like you said, the 14-point spread was not indicative of how much of a blowout that game really was. Now, granted, the 49ers outgained the Ravens. They outrushed the Ravens, but they also turned the ball over 5 times and got sacked 4 times. And so, that's not exactly a recipe for success. And, the Ravens dominated in that aspect. Going into this game against the Dolphins, we're back home. I think they have all the confidence in the world. And I think they want week 18 to not really mean anything. It's going to be a hard-fought game against the Steelers. The Steelers always play us hard. We've already lost to the Steelers this season. And so I think if you have that cushion where you've already locked up the 1 seed, that bodes well, going forward. It allows you to get a clean bill of health going into the playoffs. My one concern is in this game specifically against the Dolphins, Kyle Hamilton is battling an injury. He's listed as questionable. I think it was you that tweeted about Jimmy Smith? Because that put that thought in my head, like, all right, maybe it's best if Hamilton sits out this game. As much as we'd want to win it, I'd also want him to be healthy for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I look at it, man. So, when Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams are healthy, you don't really see a lot of Geno Stone. And Geno Stone, I don't know if he still does, but at one point led the league in interceptions and had one of the lowest passer ratings against him at safety. For me, I would much
Yeah.
rather Kyle Hamilton sit out, take my chances, put Geno Stone in there, take my chances with this team with Waddle not playing either. And that's no Hamilton kind of evens the playing field with no Waddle. And I think the Ravens can go out and win the game. But, in my opinion, Kyle Hamilton, I think is in a lot of people's opinion, he's going to be an All-Pro this year. And in my
Yeah.
opinion, I think he should be a
Yeah.
candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he is a difference maker. He's a game changer on that defense. So I'm not going to say that they don't need him. I don't think they need him in the game against the Steelers. If he's going to play this week and he can get out of it healthy, I think there's no chance he plays against the Steelers. But if the Ravens do lose this game, I think that against the Steelers, you say it's going to be hard fought, and they almost always are. I think this time around, it's going to be like Detroit Lions or the Seattle Seahawks, where the Ravens are going to blow them out of the water. I mean, we're talking. I think that they'll win that game something like 38-3. I do not. I think the Steelers are just a god awful football team, and if the Ravens need that game to win the division and clinch if they lose to the Dolphins, they're going to need the Dolphins to lose to the Bills to get that one seed.
Right. Which I think
Right.
is entirely possible.
So I look at that, and if the Ravens need that victory to hope to be the home team, you're probably not getting the first round bye. But if they need that victory, I think they're going to blow the Steelers away. However, I think they're going to beat the Dolphins on Sunday. I think that you look at. They keep talking about how locked in they are. Lamar on the offensive side, Roquan on the defensive side, talking about how locked in this team is. Patrick Queen, nobody wants to play the brand of football that we play. And then you remember that the last time the Ravens played the Dolphins, it was at home. It was week 2 of 2022, and they had a 35-14 lead entering the fourth quarter, and they lost the football game. I look at that, and I think that the Ravens remember that because a lot of those same guys are still here, and I think the Ravens are going to go out there and punch them in the mouth on Sunday. It could be a close game, but I think it could also be a blowout.
Can I confess that? So, all right, let me preface this by saying that I bet Ravens money line against the 49ers, and that cashed, obviously. But I have to confess, I threw a few bucks on Dolphins money line. I call it hedging my emotions, where either the Ravens win or I win a few bucks. So I did bet on the Dolphins, and I'll only do this when the Ravens are. I'll bet like if the money line odds are in the positives, I'll take that. But yeah, I do have confidence in the Ravens. I do think they will come out and win, but just to be safe,
Yeah, I try not to bet on the Ravens because every time I do, something bad happens. So I do not. Although I did bet on them once this year and they won, so that was that was cool. But they were part of a parlay that won me some money. But anyway, so yeah, I think the Ravens are going to take care of the Dolphins on Sunday. I think they know what's in front of them. They know that if they want that one seed guaranteed, they got to win this game. Real quick, any concern about facing the Cleveland Flaccos in the playoffs? Yeah, I have no concerns either. People are like, oh
no. Look, I love Joe. I would love to see him in the playoffs again. I hate that it's going to be for the Browns, but he's been great. He's thrown for a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. He's also thrown 8 picks in 4 starts. So like, there's still something about him that like,
and he hasn't.
I don't know. I'm not afraid.
He hasn't faced
Joe
a defense
anymore.
like the Ravens yet. Although I will say that the number 2 passing defense in football is the New York Jets, and he torched them in the first half. He only threw for 13 yards in the second half, but that's because he didn't need to. They were up so big. So that's going to do it for us here on the Bat Around today. I want to remind you, today's show brought to you by Project Game Day and the Tyus Bowser Show. You can join Glenn, Rita, and Femi Iambadejo right here on these same press box pages for Project Game Day following tomorrow's massive Dolphins-Ravens matchup. And join Pressbox and Great Ace Memorabilia for the next Tyus Bowser Show this Tuesday, January 2nd at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. Both shows are brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. You don't want to miss these shows. Big Ravens-Dolphins game tomorrow. Hopefully next week we'll have some Orioles news to talk about. Otherwise, until then, thanks for tuning in. See ya!